She raised her glass, smiled at my wedding guests, and used my microphone to accuse me of ruining her life. Right there, in front of everyone I loved. I'm Jenna, and I thought the worst part was over. But when I read the letter our mom had hidden for nearly a decade, the entire room turned, not just on her lies, but on the silence that let them grow. You ever been blamed for something you didn't do by the very people who were supposed to protect you? Yeah, that was my wedding day. Before we jump into the story, if you don't mind, let me know where you're from by leaving a comment below. That way I can send a special hello your way. Now go ahead, grab yourself a warm cup of water and find a comfy spot. It's time to begin the story. I always thought silence would be comforting on my wedding day. Peaceful. Like the kind that settles after the last note of a song lingers in the air. But this silence feels cold, like the kind you find in a waiting room when no one knows what to say. The bridal suite hums faintly with the air conditioner. It's late April in Savannah, but inside my bare arms are speckled with goosebumps. I sit at the vanity, staring at the veil in my lap. The satin trembles slightly between my fingers, and I realize it's not the veil that's shaking. It's me. Only 17 showed up, out of 63. I counted again after Linda left, even though I already knew the number by heart. 17 from my family. Or maybe I should say 17 from the side that's supposed to be mine, my mom's side. The ones who clapped at my piano recitals and used to send birthday cards with glittery cursive. Now they're just names with empty chairs beside them. My phone buzzed earlier. I didn't want to look, but I did. You know Amanda needs us more right now. That's all Mom said. No thinking of you. No can't wait to see you walk down the aisle. Just that. Like I was the one being selfish. Like I hadn't already spent months stitching this day together, flower by flower, budget line by budget line. I adjust my posture, trying to steady myself. The mirror offers no reassurance. My reflection looks too pale, like the dress is draining the color from my skin. The bodice squeezes just under my ribs. Tight, even though it fit fine 2 weeks ago. Maybe that's what stress does. Shrinks everything inside you. A knock pulls me from my spiral. The door opens before I can answer. Linda steps in, clipboard in hand, lips painted too red for this quiet room. "Jenna, sweetheart," she says, her voice sing-song. "Just a quick update before I check on the groomsmen." She hesitates, eyes flicking toward my phone on the vanity. "Guest count confirmed. Your ride brought in 17 guests." I nod once. Her smile falters. "I know it's not the number we expected," she adds quickly, tapping her pen against the board, "but the space still looks beautiful. The white delphiniums really pop on camera." I offer a polite smile. It doesn't reach my eyes, and I don't care if she notices. She leaves without another word. The silence returns. I reach for my bracelet. Except there isn't one. Just bare skin. I forgot to put it on. Or maybe I didn't have one. Another knock. Softer this time. When the door creaks open, it's Margaret. "Hi, sweetheart," she says gently, stepping in with a little box in her hands. She's wearing dove gray silk and soft pink lipstick, like the mother of the bride I didn't get. "I thought you could use this." She opens the lid. Nestled inside, a single-strand pearl bracelet glows against velvet. My grandmother wore it on her wedding day, then my mother, then me. I blink fast, fighting the tears rising too quickly. "You don't have to wear it," she adds, "but I wanted you to know. You have family on the other side of that door. We're waiting." I nod, too overwhelmed to say thank you. My fingers fumble as she helps me clasp it. It's cool against my skin, solid like an anchor. She squeezes my hand once and disappears, leaving behind a warmth that lingers longer than the cold air. A few minutes pass. Then Julian slips in, tucks jacket unbuttoned, bow tie still slightly off-center. He doesn't speak, just walks over, kneels slightly to meet my gaze, and rests his palms over mine. "You okay?" he murmurs, though he must already know the answer. I shake my head, but I smile anyway. A small one. He straightens my necklace, the one I borrowed from Rachel, then presses his lips to my forehead. "I'll see you at the end of the aisle." And just like that, he's gone. I rise slowly. My dress sways gently, brushing against the edge of the rug. I grab my bouquet, a mix of white roses and delphiniums, and stare at my reflection once more. I look like a bride. I just don't feel like one. The hallway outside is hushed. Linda reappears and gestures toward the double doors leading to the sanctuary. "Ready?" she asks. I nod, though the word feels foreign. The doors open. For a heartbeat, I see everything all at once. The soft glow of candles, the strings of the quartet playing something elegant, the light flooding in from the stained glass windows above. The aisle stretches ahead, long and straight, petals perfectly arranged down the middle. To the left, empty pews, white bows, unused programs, wilting flowers. To the right, Julian's family. They stand, smiling, some even teary-eyed. Their joy hits me like a wave of something I can't quite name. No father waits beside me. He's not here. Didn't even send a message. Then I feel it. Margaret's hand on my arm. She nods once. I place my free hand gently on hers, and we begin to walk. Each step echoes louder than the last. The heels click against marble. The air is thick with the scent of lilies and time lost. As we pass the second row, I catch a blur of motion behind me. A whisper travels on a breath too close. "She's here," someone says. "Elaine, she brought a speech." I don't stop walking, but my heart stumbles, and suddenly the silence no longer feels cold. It feels electric, like something is about to break. Elaine didn't start ruining things when I got engaged. She just got louder. That's the honest truth. The way a leaky faucet eventually becomes a burst pipe if you let it drip long enough. I used to think if I stayed quiet, if I didn't react, things would balance out. That eventually, fairness would find its way into the house I grew up in. But fairness never had a seat at our kitchen table. The first memory that stirs is 4th of July, maybe 2007. I was 11. Elaine was 13 and bored, which usually meant trouble for someone else. That year, Dad lit sparklers in the backyard while Mom served lemonade in red Solo cups, and our neighbors waved from over the fence. I remember trying to teach myself cartwheels on the grass, my ponytail slapping across my neck. I was almost mid-air when I heard the shriek. Elaine collapsed to the patio stones like she'd been shot. Everyone ran to her. I froze. She clutched her ankle, wincing like she'd broken something. Turned out she twisted it stepping off the cooler wrong. Mild sprain, if that. But you'd have thought she lost a toe with all the attention. Mom hovered like a nurse. Dad told me to put the sparklers away. That was the end of the holiday. She always had that talent, turning everyday moments into her own solo act. And we, her unwilling supporting cast, just adjusted our lines accordingly. My 16th birthday was quiet. I came home from school to a small chocolate cake on the counter and a wrapped journal with my initials pressed into the cover in gold. I smiled and thanked them. I even meant it. But 2 years earlier, when Elaine turned 16, she got a Tiffany bracelet. We had brunch at a country club. There was a hired photographer and a custom cake shaped like her initials. When I brought it up once, not to compare, just to point out the pattern, Mom waved me off. "You never liked being the center of attention anyway," she said, which was true, but not the point. During senior year, I was awarded a full scholarship to Emory. I came home beaming, acceptance letter still warm from the printer. Corinne hugged me stiffly and said, "Let's not talk about this in front of Elaine. She's already upset about state not giving her enough aid." Elaine hadn't even applied to Emory. That night, I overheard them whispering in the kitchen. Mom's voice was low, her tone stretched thin. "We can't let her feel left out. Not again." Dad agreed like a man who signed the dotted line years ago and never read the fine print. What do you do with that? At 18, I just folded myself smaller. The scholarship didn't come with armor. In college, I kept my head down, got good grades, sent holiday cards. And then, during my junior year, I heard from Rachel, my cousin and closest friend since childhood, that Elaine had told her I used to flirt with Darren, her ex. I was stunned. I hadn't spoken to Darren in years. We went to the same high school, shared 2 AP classes. That was it. I confronted Elaine at a family barbecue. I pulled her aside, heart pounding, voice shaking. "Why are you saying I tried to steal your boyfriend?" She blinked, faux innocent. "I didn't say steal, I just said you two always seemed close. People noticed." People. That vague army she always summoned to do her dirty work. When I told Mom, she sighed and said, "You know how Elaine gets when she feels insecure. Just be the bigger person." That line had become a refrain by then. I could probably get it stitched onto a throw pillow. Rachel's wedding brought the final straw. She got married in the fall of 2020, a cozy vineyard ceremony outside Athens. I was a bridesmaid, Elaine too. After the ceremony, we took dozens of family photos. I stood 2 spots down from the bride, smiling with a glass of champagne I hadn't touched. When the pictures were uploaded to the wedding website, one caught my eye, a full Walker family portrait. Everyone was perfectly framed, everyone but me. My shoulder was barely in the frame, my face cut off halfway. I texted Rachel, "I think they uploaded the wrong crop." She didn't respond. Weeks later, she told me quietly, "Your mom asked the photographer to center Elaine. She said the angle made her look better." That was the day something quiet inside me fractured. Back in the present, I stared down at the bouquet in my hands. The delphiniums are still crisp, but my fingers have pressed deep into the stems. I loosen my grip slightly, trying not to crush the blooms. Julian is across the room, laughing with his cousin over something trivial. The music has returned, soft background jazz, the kind no one really listens to, but that makes everything feel more expensive. I try to breathe through it. Just hold the line. Smile. Get through dinner. Then the DJ's voice cuts through the hum. "We have a surprise guest host coming up in just a moment." I freeze. Rachel leans in from the table beside me, brows raised. "Did you plan another toast?" I shake my head slowly, and in that breathless moment, I know. Elaine didn't just come to the wedding. She came with a microphone. Elaine smiled like the room was already hers. She stood beneath the canopy of fairy lights, one manicured hand curled around a champagne flute, the other raised in a graceful wave. Her rose gold dress shimmered with every calculated movement, like she was part of the chandelier herself. Julian's cousin had just finished his toast, funny, warm, full of anecdotes about childhood summers and how Julian once got a Lego stuck in his ear. Laughter still lingered in the air when Elaine stood up from the far right table. I don't know how she got the mic. Maybe she asked Linda. Maybe she didn't ask anyone at all. She didn't glance my way as she began. "To the beautiful bride," she said, holding her glass aloft, "and to the man lucky enough to have her." A few people clapped politely. Her voice was light, laced with the kind of sweetness you only hear when someone's about to poison the well. I gripped my bouquet tighter. "I wasn't sure I should speak tonight," Elaine continued, voice trembling just enough to seem sincere. "But family is complicated, and weddings bring all kinds of emotions, don't they?" The room quieted. The quartet had stopped playing. Forks hung mid-air. When Jenna told us about the wedding date, I was struggling. My life wasn't picture perfect. My relationship had ended. I was hurting. Her tone stayed airy, but every word felt like a needle. She was planning floral arrangements while I was signing divorce papers. A few guests shifted in their chairs. "And still," she added with a watery smile, I told myself to support her, because that's what sisters do, right? Margaret's hand brushed mine under the table. "I've always admired Jenna," Elaine said, turning slightly, letting her gaze finally land on me. "She's smart, composed. She's always known what she wants." Her voice turned, almost imperceptibly, even when that meant stepping into places she wasn't invited. I felt Julian go still beside me. "Some of you may remember Darren," she said casually, like bringing up her ex in the middle of a wedding toast was perfectly normal. We were together for 3 years. He left not long after Jenna started spending more time around us. My jaw tightened. I heard a guest whisper. My blood pounded in my ears. She was always charming, Elaine continued. Always knew how to light up a room. I suppose some people are just born with that gift. The nerve of it. The way she laced the words with false humility while painting me as some seductive interloper. Julian started to rise. I caught his hand and gave it a slight tug. Not yet. Margaret leaned in, her voice low but firm. We can have her escorted out. No, I whispered. Let her finish. Elaine took a deep breath, as if preparing to cry, but no tears came. I came here tonight because, despite everything, I still believe in family, she said. I still want to be part of this one, even if I've been pushed aside. Her eyes shimmered as she turned toward the guests. So here's to forgiveness, to starting over, and to remembering that no table setting or cake flavor is more important than the people we love. She raised her glass. The silence was heavy, the kind that makes silverware feel louder than it should. I stood. Chairs creaked, heads turned. Elaine's lips parted, uncertain. I walked slowly to the microphone she'd just abandoned, bouquet still in hand. My heels clicked against the floor like a clock counting down. The mic felt warm in my palm. Thank you, Elaine, I said softly, not looking at her. I reached into the side of my dress and pulled out a small envelope, pale blue with gold-trimmed edges, the kind you find in a drawer you forgot existed, the kind that feels too delicate to open but too important not to. I didn't plan to speak tonight either, I said, eyes scanning the room. But our mother left something behind, something she asked me to read, and I think this is the time. Elaine's face froze. The smile dropped. The guests leaned in. A few gasped quietly. Julian stood now behind me, a steady presence. Margaret hadn't moved. Her fingers gripped her glass, but her jaw was set like stone. I unfolded the letter slowly. The paper crackled in my hands. This, I said, is what our mother couldn't say out loud. Elaine took one step backward. The room held its breath, and I began to read. Mom's voice cracked between each word I read, except she wasn't here to speak them. The reception hall had fallen quiet. Even the hum of the air conditioner felt distant now. The chandeliers flickered softly above me, casting golden halos across the half-empty tables. Guests sat with silverware paused mid-air, champagne glasses hovering inches from lips. Every breath seemed held hostage. I unfolded the letter fully, hands trembling just enough to make the paper whisper. Jenna, if you're reading this, I'm gone. And if you're reading this aloud, it means the moment I always feared has come to pass. Elaine stood frozen near the far table. Her smile was still painted on, but her shoulders had stiffened. She looked like someone bracing for a wave. I kept going. I failed you more times than I can count. I didn't say it then, and I won't pretend it's enough now, but I need you to know I saw it. All of it. I looked up briefly. The guests' eyes were locked on me, not blinking, not sipping, just waiting. I saw the way you shrank so your sister could shine, the way you tiptoed around her moods, took the blame when it was easier for everyone. You made room where there was none, and I let you. I paused, breath catching. Julian was behind me, quiet and still, his presence like gravity keeping me upright. Elaine told me things about Darren, that you were interfering, that you were crossing boundaries, but I knew, deep down, I knew they weren't true. I saw the way she looked through your phone when you weren't around. I found the emails she deleted from Darren. She read his messages. She hid his keys one night so he couldn't leave. Gasps rippled across the room. Elaine's hands gripped the back of a chair. Her knuckles were white. She told me if I didn't believe her, she would disappear, that she'd hurt herself, that I would lose her, and I was afraid. I thought silence was keeping the family intact. My throat tightened. I looked down, blinked the blur from my eyes. I thought, if I could just keep the peace long enough, maybe we'd all come out the other side. But peace built on denial isn't peace. It's just quiet shame, and you've carried enough of it. Someone at the front table lowered her glass slowly. I caught Rachel's eyes. She looked stricken. If you're still reading, Jenna, it means you've survived everything we tried to ignore. You're stronger than I ever was, and I am sorry. Not for loving Elaine, but for forgetting how to love you out loud. The chandeliers flickered once as I turned to the last part of the page. The hall was still, but I could feel the heat pulsing off my skin. To those listening now, I was complicit, and if you're hearing this, it means Jenna finally has a room full of people willing to listen. Believe her. Believe the girl I left to fend for herself in a house full of closed doors. She never deserved your silence. The final sentence looked rushed, like she had scrawled it before sealing the envelope. This is not your burden anymore. It was mine. I folded the letter gently. My fingers were damp. Silence pressed in from all sides, thick and vibrating. I didn't cry. Not really. My throat ached, my chest hollowed out, but the tears held back. I'd cried enough in private to earn this moment of clarity. My voice had steadied in ways I never expected. Elaine took a step back. Someone knocked over a fork. The clatter echoed like a firecracker in a funeral parlor. Then came the sound that split the tension like lightning, the sharp shatter of glass. Elaine's wine glass slipped from her hand and hit the tile floor, breaking into 3 jagged pieces that skated under the dessert table. She didn't move to clean it up. Neither did anyone else. I didn't realize I was still holding the microphone until Julian reached out and took it gently from my hand. Elaine looked around, left then right, but no one stood. No one followed her lead. Her power, the illusion of it, was cracking like the glass at her feet, and I, finally, was still. By Monday morning, Elaine's video had 200,000 views, and the comments weren't kind. I watched it in silence, seated on the edge of our bed, the glow of my phone flickering against the pale linen comforter. She'd recorded it in what looked like her guest bathroom, soft yellow lighting, framed quote on the wall that read, "Grace starts with forgiveness." Her face was blotchy but made up, mascara clumping like spider legs. The crying looked almost practiced. "I never meant to hurt anyone," she said, voice shaking. "But no one sees how hard it is to be misunderstood, to lose everything, even your own family." Julian appeared in the doorway with a mug of tea. He didn't ask if I wanted to see the video. He just handed me the mug and sat beside me, our knees touching. He didn't say a word. I scrolled through the comments. "So you got caught and now you want sympathy? Where was this energy when you lied about your sister? This feels choreographed." Some were supportive, of course. There always are. People who don't know the full story and don't care to. But the overwhelming tone was skepticism. Margaret had said it best. Some people live off performance. But truth? That'll always outlast applause. The day after the wedding, we stayed at Julian's parents' home. Margaret cooked a full brunch, soft scrambled eggs, biscuits, chicken sausage, and her chicken soup simmering on the stove. Just in case you need something gentle. I wasn't hungry, but I ate anyway. It felt rude not to. The dining room was filled with quiet energy. No one tiptoed around me, but no one prodded either. Julian's younger cousin asked me to pass the orange juice and complimented my dress. It was the first time in years I'd sat at a family table and felt like I could exhale. Margaret slid a bowl of soup in front of me and patted my hand. "You did what was right. That's not always the same as what's easy." I nodded, too tired to answer. Julian did all the dishes afterward, every last spoon. No one asked him to. That afternoon, I opened my messages. A cousin I hadn't spoken to in 3 years wrote, "I'm sorry, I believed what I was told." An old friend from high school messaged, I always wondered what happened at that beach trip. It never made sense the way Elaine spun it. And Rachel, my anchor in the chaos, sent a screenshot. Elaine's former college roommate had posted on Facebook, "If anyone else has experienced strange behavior from Elaine Walker, especially around weddings or engagements, please reach out." This isn't the first time. The thread had over 40 comments. One woman wrote, "She stalked my friend when she got engaged. Showed up at the bridal boutique and said she was there to support, but then made the appointment about her own canceled wedding. It was bizarre." I sat in stunned silence. Elaine had always been a storm I was supposed to shield others from, and now strangers were beginning to see the damage too. It didn't feel like revenge. It felt like release. Still, the clarity came with a quiet ache, not rage, not sorrow, just a worn-out kind of grief, the kind you carry like a sweater you don't need anymore, but don't know how to throw away. Back in our apartment, I tucked the wedding dress into a garment bag and stored it in the back of the hall closet. Not out of shame, but because the dress had done its job. It had walked me through the fire. On Wednesday morning, Julian and I returned from a grocery run, bags filled with oat milk, cereal, and a few oranges, when I noticed the package on our doorstep. It was small, wrapped in cream paper, tied with a lavender ribbon. No return address. My chest tightened. Julian reached it before I could. "You want me to open it?" I nodded. He peeled it slowly, hands careful but firm. Inside was a baby blanket, hand-knit, pale yellow, soft as clouds. Folded beneath it was a card. I already knew who it was from before he read it aloud. "For the child I'll never get to have. Aunt Elaine." My breath caught. For a second, I wasn't sure whether to laugh, cry, or scream. I did none of those things. I took the blanket from Julian's hands. It was beautiful, and it made my skin crawl. The storm hadn't passed. It had simply moved into new terrain. "Do you want to keep it?" Julian asked gently. I shook my head. "Okay," he said. No further questions. He folded the blanket again, placed it back in the box, and slid it under the hall bench. Out of sight, but not forgotten. And I stood in the kitchen, fingers curled around a chipped mug of tea, trying to let the warmth remind me that peace wasn't about being untouched. It was about knowing you could weather what came next. Elaine had moved from the center of the stage to the shadows, but shadows, as I was learning, didn't always stay where they belonged. Her tiny hand wrapped around my thumb as if she already knew I'd fight the world for her. Emily was born with a full head of dark curls and lungs that didn't hesitate to announce her arrival. Now, 1 year later, she was the sun around which our little world revolved. It was a warm Saturday in early April, one of those rare spring days in Savannah when the air was thick with honeysuckle, but still gentle enough to breathe easily. Our backyard looked like something out of a Sunday morning magazine spread. Checkered picnic blankets, lemon cupcakes with pale yellow frosting, mason jars filled with wildflowers, and flower crowns slowly slipping off toddlers' heads. Margaret had outdone herself as usual. She arrived early with a box of hand-tied bows, insisting each child leave with a garden goodie bag. Julian's cousins helped string fairy lights between the trees while someone put on an acoustic playlist that blended into the breeze. Emily sat proudly in the center of it all, frosting on her nose, clapping her hands each time someone said her name. Her laughter bubbled out without hesitation. That alone would have been enough to break me wide open, but joy has a way of making room for more. When the sun dipped low and the last guests trickled out, Julian carried Emily upstairs for a nap while I gathered paper plates and unwrapped crumpled streamers from the fence. The quiet settled over the yard like a soft blanket, and for a moment I let myself just sit. The sky above was lavender and orange, the kind of sky that tells you something beautiful has just ended, but something better might be on the way. I went inside and pulled the wooden memory box down from the hallway shelf, the one Margaret had given me when Emily was born. Inside were hospital bracelets, her first ultrasound, and a card from Julian that still smelled faintly of cedar and baby lotion. And now, a letter. I sat at the kitchen table, smoothed the stationery flat, and began to write. To Emily Grace, on your 18th birthday, there are things I won't always be able to explain in the moment, but I want you to understand them when you're ready, truly ready. This letter isn't about blame. It's about peace, about choosing it, over and over, even when the world doesn't make it easy. You may wonder why certain people aren't in your childhood pictures, why your family tree has more quiet spaces than crowded branches. You may hear stories, softly spoken or carelessly shared, that make you question the choices your father and I made. So let me say this plainly. You never needed to be someone else's redemption. You were never meant to carry the weight of someone else's grief. We chose distance not out of bitterness, but because love, real love, protects what it builds. The home you grew up in may have fewer voices, but every one of them chose to stay. That matters more than the number of chairs around the table. You were always enough, just as you are. I paused. The pen hovered. Then I added the final line. And I hope you never, ever have to earn your place where you belong. I folded the letter, slipped it into an envelope, and labeled it. To Emily, when you're ready to know why peace sometimes means distance. I placed it in the memory box and closed the lid with a soft click. When I walked back outside, Julian was waiting by the swing set. Emily perched on his shoulders, shrieking as he bounced her gently. She wore a crooked crown of daisies and a grin that belonged in a painting. I think she's a little drunk on frosting, he said, eyes squinting in the fading light. Like father, like daughter. He laughed, pulling something from his pocket. I was going to wait until tonight, but I'm not great at waiting. He handed me a small velvet box. Inside was a delicate gold necklace, a round disc engraved with EGC, and underneath smaller initials I hadn't seen before. JSC, I whispered. Julian Samuel? Carter? He nodded. I looked up, breath caught. He placed a hand on my stomach, gentle and sure. We are. I didn't speak for a long moment, just wrapped my arms around him and let the breeze fold us into the moment. In the yard, the lights twinkled on. Emily kicked her legs in the swing, squealing as Julian lifted her higher. I stood at the edge of the porch, one hand resting over the new life growing inside me, and whispered to the dusk, "You'll never have to earn your place here." And for the first time in my life, I didn't just believe it, I lived it. Watching Emily laugh on the swing that evening, her little arms reaching for the sky, I realized peace isn't the absence of chaos. It's the presence of love, chosen and protected every single day. I used to think family meant who raised you, but now I know it's who stands by you when the truth is hard to hear. In life, some ties are broken to let new ones grow stronger. When we choose honesty over comfort and love over obligation, we don't just heal, we build something better for the next generation. It takes courage to walk away from harm, and even more to walk toward wholeness. If this story reminded you of a moment when you had to choose peace over pain, I'd love to hear it. And if you know someone who might need a gentle reminder that healing is possible, feel free to share.